Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou ki tēnei hui me te kaupapa o tēnei wā, accessibility and disability for schools. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Monica Kuhn. I'm one of the learning specialists on the project team for Te Pōtiaki Manatonga, and I look forward to us all learning together for the next hour. Let's get started with karakia. Whakatake te hau ki te uru, whakatake te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uta, ki mā tāratara ki tai. Ehi ake ana te atakura. E tio, e hoka, e hauhu, te hei Māori ora. Great to see you here today. We've got a really special webinar that we would like to share with you in just a moment. We know it's a really busy time for people, so if you're catching up on the recording after the actual webinar, welcome to you as well. Just a quick reminder, as I've just said, we are recording the webinar, we're uploading it to YouTube, and I will blur out the faces of the participants. We'll share the link to the recording on our website, on our Facebook group, and anybody who wants to go and look back, or anybody who couldn't make it today, please come back and rewatch the session. There will be some relevant tips and links, and we'll upload those to the website as well. Now, today we've got 3 speakers who've previously worked together in Hastings on a pilot project with students from Kōwhai Specialist School. I'll introduce our first speaker, which is the lovely Kelsey, who's currently the ELC educator, or Kaiako ELC, at Pātaka Art and Museum in Porirua. Kelsey has worked in museums and galleries over the past 8 years in a range of roles. Accessibility is one of her passions, which she's also focused on during her Master of Museum and Heritage Practice. In 2021, while she was at the Hastings City Art Gallery, Te Wharetoi o Heretaunga, Kelsey ran a successful pilot program with students from Kōwhai Specialist School in Hastings. Now, Kelsey will introduce her co-presenters in a moment, so I hand over to her now. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Kelsey. I'm the Kaiako ELC, or ELC educator at Pātaka Art and Museum in Porirua, and a special hello to Josie, my manager, who's sitting there watching. I'm really excited to be joined today by 2 amazing teachers from Kōwhai Specialist School in Hastings, Angie Dent, who's the deputy principal, and Amy Shoebridge. And we made the absolute dream team while working on a pilot program together in 2021, which we're really excited to share with you all today. And what our pilot program did was take senior students from Kōwhai Specialist School, bring them into the gallery, introduce them to the space, and run a program where they developed a personal response to their favourite artwork in one of our exhibitions, and talked about why they liked it to a group of people. So that was really exciting. I thought I'd start by doing a little bit of an introduction to myself, just to give everybody a sense of my background and where I'm coming from, and really start by saying I'm not trained in specialist education. I don't have a lot of experience prior to this in working with specialist school students, other than kind of helping visitors through the space, assisting with school programs, things like that. But just in case anybody is ever considering running a special program with a specialist school, that you can do it. I did it, and it's really, really rewarding mahi. So my first kind of time where I was introduced to disabled audiences was very early in my career, where I worked as visitor hosts, like in visitor host roles and customer service roles, and kind of interacting with different people in my day-to-day. And through this, I became really aware of the different types of audiences that access our spaces. And I really wanted to try and make sure that those visitors felt really welcome and comfortable in our spaces. And so when I went on to study my Master of Museum and Heritage Practice in 2017, which 5 years ago feels like a long time ago, this was something that I honed in on, this area. I noticed there was a lack of literature on, and not too many examples of accessibility initiatives here in Aotearoa, and I kind of wanted to change that a little bit. So that became a bit of a focus for me in my studies, I guess. And when I went on in 2017, I did an internship where I went to Hastings City Art Gallery, where I first met Angie all those years ago, and she helped me develop a series of social script resources for the gallery. And we worked collaboratively with that all those years ago. And I think social scripts have been covered in a previous webinar, but just to sort of briefly explain it for anybody who isn't familiar with what they are, social scripts are essentially resources that can be accessed by students that have additional needs. And it just explains in very plain language what those students can expect when they come into our spaces. So it might include things like images of our gallery spaces, potential stresses to students or visitors, things that they might get caught off guard by, and just kind of goes through that in a first person language so students can read those prior to their visit and feel really prepared for what to expect. So I was very lucky to be able to do that as a very ambitious young student. And also when I did my internship at Hastings City Art Gallery, I did accessibility scope reports and tons of outreach. And I really love working collaboratively with people. And so it was really the perfect fit. So as I said, Angie and Amy are joining us today. I'm really happy to have them here, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about Kōwhai Specialist School. And I think that this is really nice. I feel very happy that they're with us because a lot of us work with specialist schools. They come in for visits, but maybe not many of us have been into a specialist school before or even know how they work necessarily. So they're going to talk to us a little bit about that in a moment. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora, I'm Angie Dent. I'm the DP at Kōwhai Specialist School, and I met lovely Kelsey. We worked out around 5 years ago, and she just made contact with the school and went out of her way to allow our students to access the art gallery all across the school. We've had so many opportunities from our little tamariki who are 5 years old up to our tech students who we'll be talking about today. And she's just such a lovely, bubbly person. Nothing's too much trouble. She goes out of her way to make things work, and it's just been a fantastic experience. So thank you, Kelsey. And we're just going to share a little bit about our school with you and the special education side of things. Thank you.
Kia ora e te whānau, I'm called Amy Toko Ingoa. I am the assistant principal at Kōwhai, or one of the assistant principals, and I'm also one of the tech teachers. So our tech students are 18 to 21 years old. So the oldest students in a special school are 18 to 21. And part of my job for the last few years has been helping our students transition out of Kōwhai, and that has included work experience. So that's how I've become involved. We're just going to start off today with one of our school whakatauki, which is ko te ahure o te tamaiti, arahia o tātou mahi. Let the uniqueness of the child guide our work.
So our school is a specialist school. There are not that many around the country. We worked out, we think around 27 around the country. So we take on students who have got Oz funding, who are very high needs or high needs. And we're very lucky that we can keep our school open post 18 for our 18 to 21 year olds as well. And we're a little bit unique because our setting is over 6 satellite schools. We have a base school with our juniors and a base seniors class. We've got satellite classes at Central School, Heratonga Intermediate, Rorika, and Kimiora is our newest, which is primary up to intermediate, and Flaxmere College, which hosts our high school and tech students. And we've currently got 113 on the roll, so we always steadily grow. And we currently stand at 46% Māori students and 8% Pacifica. And we've got a massive teaching staff of around 90 people, which includes teachers, our therapy team with speech therapists, occupational therapists, a physiotherapist, psychologist, and a music therapist as well. And we've got lots of teacher aides who we couldn't do our jobs without, our lovely office team, and our caretaker Murray, who we also couldn't do without. We adapt the curriculum for each of our students. Our whakatauki sort of outlines everything we do, that each student is an individual and really unique. And it's our job to find out what makes them tick, what engages them in education, and provide resources, learning opportunities and goals to best meet their needs. And we work on very small steps with our students. And it's not just English and maths and the curricular subjects. We work in a holistic way with emotional, behavioural, social skills as well. So what would you see if you came on a visit to Kōwhai School? I think there's a little bit of stigma around special schools sometimes within the community. But what I hope people think when they come to our school, that it's a really warm and welcoming place, and the students have fun, and it's really a lovely place to work, and I think all of us love working there. I've been there, I think 8 years now, so quite a long time. So we've just got a little video to show you.
So one of the things that's really unique about a special school that you may or may not know is that all of our students are diagnosed with special needs, and they have what's called OARS funding. So that's what allows you to come to a special school. Our classes are much smaller than mainstream. So our teachers have the same qualifications as mainstream teachers. They've just chosen to be in a special school setting. Oh, we've lost the screen. But our classes usually have between four to 8 students, and usually you have 1 teacher and 2 teacher aides in the class. And like Angie talked about before, our teacher aides are incredible. All sorts of wild, amazing, interesting things happen in our classrooms, and the teacher aides can step up at any time to teach the class as needed. So we're very lucky with our team. So that was Kōwhai TV. We have like probably about 1 episode a term, I'd say, and they're linked into whatever's happening at our school at the time. Okay. So this is a little bit of information about our tamariki and our rangatahi, because obviously we have 5 to 21-year-olds. So we have young children, teenagers, and we have adults. So our tech students in 18 to 21 are adults, and it's quite a unique position to be in, to be teaching in a high school setting, but be teaching adults. At our school, we recognise, as we talked about before with our whakatauki, the uniqueness of our students, and all students have an individualised learning pathway, which obviously you couldn't do in a mainstream school because the classes would be too big. So some of the diagnoses that our students may have are underneath the umbrella terms of autistic spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, Fragile X, FASD, high and complex needs, epilepsy, dysphagia, global developmental delay. And most of our students have challenges with one or more of the following. So learning. It says most of our students work within level 1 of the curriculum. So level 1 in mainstream would be new entrant, year 1 and year 2. That would be accessing level 1 of the curriculum. So most of our students access level 1 up until the end of the time they leave Kōwhai at 21. So just to put that into perspective. A lot of our students have challenges with communication and have a variety of different communication systems that you would see if you came into a special school, or if our students were to come to visit you, there'd be a variety of communication devices and styles. Most of our students have challenges with fine and gross motor skills, social skills, emotional understanding, regulation, definitely behaviour management, self-care and safety awareness. So you can imagine the way we teach is quite different to mainstream, and what you would see on a trip if special school students came to visit, or if you visited our school, would look very different to a mainstream setting.
So this is just the old adage, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. So we really do sort of look at the individuals. We work with families really closely to see what the goals are and the priorities are. Often, like Amy said, it could be a safety issue. So our environment is quite adapted for our students. We have swipe locks for the classrooms to maintain safety. And sometimes we have students that are really good at climbing and they love doing it. So we have to have safety fencing that's around. And we also have beautiful sensory gardens, because a lot of our students need to self-regulate and have some time outside, or doing a self-regulation activity such as going on the swing, or in one of those little spinning balls or something, or shooting some basketball hoops. So we need that indoor-outdoor flow, but in a really safe way as well. And we work really closely with our therapists as well to make sure the environment's safe, the resources are specific for each child, and the communication tools as well, like Amy just mentioned.
So just on the safety fences Angie was talking about, they're supposed to be anti-climb, but one of our students last week I noticed taking the nuts off the thing that connected it to the ground. So there are all sorts of ways out if you really want to get out. So we do have a very safe environment at school, and if you're going to have young people with special needs visit your centre, it would be great for you to also create a safe environment for those young people. The teachers working with those young people can tell you the kind of things you'd need to be aware of, because it's different for every student and different for every group of students. And also another key element is understanding those communication tools. I'm actually wondering if I should just grab this one just here.
Yeah, we have ones in all of our classrooms as well, like cardboards that Amy's going to show you, like a large version for the class to use.
So we would, as we're talking during the day, we have these cardboards that's got like a handle on it. So our staff are all wearing these all day, and we're pointing to the words that we are saying as we're speaking, as well as having NZSL going alongside. So there's a variety of communication methods, and typically it's much slower than it would be in a mainstream setting. Another key element is adapting activities and creating really motivating experiences. I'm sure you can recognise if students are accessing the same curriculum level from when they're 5 to when they're 21, they don't need to do the same thing every year. So one of the things that we're really careful and mindful with our planning is including repetition with variety. That's hugely important, and recognising that even though an activity may be at the same level as a previous activity, it still needs to be engaging, fun, motivating. Another key element is visual supports, for example, schedules and social stories, which I know Kelsey's talked a little bit about before, and really important, creating excellent relationships with each student. We always find that one of the privileges of working in a special school with such a small class is that you really get to know your students and you get to know their currency, you know what matters to them, and you can really twist your teaching and adapt your teaching to be about Harry Potter or Lego or Superman or Taylor Swift in my class, and Miley Cyrus. So kind of knowing what young people care about and teaching through those avenues to keep them engaged and interested. And one other really important thing about our school setting, which is very different to mainstream, is that we recognise behaviour as a form of communication. So if you saw kind of what might be considered naughty behaviour or disruptive behaviour in a mainstream school, within our school, we would think about what is the behaviour, what's happened before the behaviour, and what is the student trying to communicate with the teacher, and that's how we would view it. So always viewing behaviour as a form of communication, which I think is quite unique to special schools.
Okay, so a little slide for the lovely Kelsey. So I think I mentioned we've known each other for quite a while, and Kelsey has done so much for not just our school, but other schools within the community, mainstreams and other specialist schools. There's another specialist school quite close by in Napier as well. And I think one size doesn't always fit all, but things do work for a wide range of students. So the social scripts and social stories for our school would also work for a lot of students within mainstream schools, because we know there are many students with additional needs in mainstream schools as well. Kelsey's also going to have a way to make it work. So many of our students can become overwhelmed if they're in a new environment. They can be anxious to go in. She offered us to go in before opening time so that the students could access a quieter environment without the public in there, so they could do it in their own time, in their own way. I think time's a really important thing to mention as well. Like, our students need lots of practice, lots of repetition. They don't get bored like we do as well. So often we're just hammering away at things, and they just need that repetition again and again. And processing time as well. Some of our students with communication challenges, it can take up to 15 seconds for a student to process, even if you've given them a 2-step instruction to go into the gallery. It might take them a while to understand that and then to follow. So lots of extra time's needed as well, which those early opening hours would really be helpful for. Kelsey's also visited our school. We had a lovely trip around all of the satellite classes. Kelsey's like the Pied Piper. You can always tell when somebody's really lovely with students, because they just flock to her and run to her and communicate with her and grabbed her pretty skirt, and that doesn't always happen. Our kids are usually good judges of character. So yep, she was really well liked by all from the first visit. And she's also offered to come into school to do artwork or bring the artwork to us if it's too challenging for some of our students. And I know that our students with very high needs who maybe need wheelchair access as well, they've all visited the art gallery a lot more since we've worked with Kelsey. So it's been really cool. And the best thing, which we're going to talk about a little bit more today, was the work experience for our tech students, because it's really difficult to find quality work experience to give our students something worthwhile to do and engaging within the community. And Kelsey's just done that with, bucket loads of enthusiasm. So we'll go on to that next.
So just thinking about the work experience opportunities, it can be really difficult to find any work experience opportunities for young people with special needs. I think that sometimes neurotypical people, so kind of your normal people in the community, might view that as a bit difficult, a bit of a challenge. But the reality is that as much as our young people learn from being in those workplaces, you know, the other people in the workplace are also learning about working with people with special needs, which is also really valuable. So when we started organising this work experience, it was really fantastic. The first time, I always remember Kelsey came in to visit, and I don't know if you guys have met her personally, but she's really bubbly and friendly and chatty. And it said to her, all of the students that you're working with are verbal, because some of our students are non-verbal, so don't talk. But I said to Kelsey, they are all verbal, but they'll all be really scared. So she came in and sat down in the staff room, and she chatted away and had all these cool ideas, and may have even had some photos, I think. Was showing them these things, and they all just sat there and stared at her like completely overwhelmed. And she said, do you have any questions? And nobody asked a question. They all just stared at her. And then she left, and I was like, oh no, that was really good. It went really well. And she was like, oh really? But as Kelsey got to know them and kind of built those individual relationships, they definitely warmed up. So that was very cool to see. One other thing I thought it might be just helpful to add in is that our students in special schools are in a special school environment because their parents have chosen for them to go to a special school. The student with exactly the same needs can also go to a mainstream school. So whether you have a mainstream school visiting with young people with special needs in the class, or a special school class visiting, you can have exactly the same needs across those classrooms. It's just in a special school, every student would have those needs.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy and Angie. Kōwhai School definitely is a very warm and welcoming place, and you can just tell that with the teachers are so passionate about their work, and the students are also lovely. So I might be a bit biased, but it was a really, really great school to work with. I'm just going back to sort of when I first started back at Hastings City Art Gallery in 2020. I remember working with Angie, of course, and really wanted to pick that relationship back up again because we clicked really well, and I just felt like I wanted to make sure the school knew that they could access our space and that we were always going to welcome them into our space. And that was kind of my principal aim, is for them to always feel like they can come to us, and that the programs we offer, if they want to just come for a visit, then that's totally fine. But if they want to do something a bit more hands-on, that our programs can be flexible and tailored to specific needs. I remember we had one school come in from Kōwhai School one time, and we had an exhibition of artwork, which were little sculptures made with natural materials. And for them coming in, I said to the teachers, maybe spend a small amount of time in the space, but get students to bring like little busy bags. So the teacher came along with little Ziploc bags with leaves and things, so students could have that tactile experience without touching the artworks. And there were some leaves on the ground afterwards, and somebody from my work said, would I touch the artworks? And I was like, no, I've got it covered, don't worry about it. So really just trying to make sure that teachers knew that we could be flexible with those experiences, depending on what the students' sort of needs were. And another goal for me was to make sure we were really proactive in supporting the school, so we could create a really strong relationship that was ongoing. I think that's a really important thing from my perspective, is to make sure that the school knows it's not just going to be a one-off thing, it's not going to be a one-time thing, that we're really committed to supporting them in an ongoing capacity. So I am such a fan of outreach, and I thought I'd just kind of talk a little bit about the kind of outreach that I did with the school. So I attended some all-staff meetings where I talked to different teachers about the ways that the gallery could support Kōwhai Specialist School. And this was really helpful just in terms of getting different ideas from different people, thinking about the different needs, because as Amy and Angie have said, the students' needs are so wide-ranging and one size doesn't fit all. So really helpful to get those different perspectives from teachers. So all staff meetings were really helpful. Having a tour of the school, being the Pied Piper, I loved that. It was really good to see the space and see how the students interact with each other and with the teachers in the classroom spaces. And the sensory garden is really beautiful. Angie, by the way. Sending regular updates on our offerings. So most of us will send newsletters out to schools on what we offer each term. But I always made sure to send separate emails directly to the school, just so they were always kept in the loop of what we had on offer and what we could do with the kids. And the main one was regular meetings with my key contacts, Angie and Amy. So it was through these regular meetings that we kind of started discussing the need for the school to have a work experience program for the tech students aged 18 to 21. And this was not surprising to me, but I wasn't expecting that that would be such a big need from the school, and it seemed like a no-brainer because working in our cultural spaces with heritage and art and things like that, it's a very enriching area, and so I saw a lot of value in bringing students in and allowing them to engage with that. So TEC stands for Tertiary Education Course. Amy, did you want to elaborate a little bit on the sort of transitional period between the students leaving school and into the working world?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the Ministry of Education view transition for special needs students as starting at 14 years old. So we've got kind of like 7 years to support them with transition out of school. And up until the age of about 18, our students are still accessing the New Zealand curriculum at level, usually level 1, maybe level 2, like we talked about earlier. And then when they come into TEC, everything is life skills focused. So for maths, we're really only learning about time and money. And in time, we're learning how to read your digital, how to read your digital phone face, so you know what the time is. We're learning how to set an alarm on your phone, how to set a timer so that you can wake up on time, be somewhere on time. And for money, we're learning about being able to go into a shop and make an estimate close enough to the amount of money, how to buy something. Like this morning, I took a class to the supermarket and each of them had a variety of things. We're making potato bakes. So some people had potatoes, some people, potatoes, cream, cheese, sour cream. And I said to them, held out the money bag and I said, would you like $5, $10 or $20? And then they had to make an estimate of what would be enough money. And then, which they all did with some success. And then afterwards, if they didn't quite have the right amount of money, I took the coins out, put them in my hand and said, okay, let's add up to get to that amount of money. So it's very, very practical what we teach. Also, one of the things which is probably a little bit unique about special schools is that we try and support our students to learn almost like life scripts. So an example of this might be, we have a dating script, which comes from New Zealand Family Planning. We didn't make it up. But it's kind of a script on how to ask somebody out on a date. And then you've got the initial script, and then you've got, if they say yes, then you go into organising, well, what do you like to do? What kind of things should we do on our date? What day could we meet? What time could we meet? And if they say no, being able to bow out gracefully and walk away without, feeling embarrassed or losing face. So the way that Kelsey had set up this work experience was fantastic because our students were given the opportunity to design a script, which Kelsey will talk about a little bit more soon, and then rote learn the script and practice it, which is really similar to what we do in a lot of our teaching as well. And the kind of things our students would do in literacy are like being able to write a basic letter. So if you're applying for a job, you could write a simple letter to go at the front of it, and also being able to fill in forms so that when you go to the library, you could fill the form in to get a library card. Or, you could do basic typing to find what you wanted on Google. So that's the kind of things. And also one other thing, sorry, just looking at my notes, is social skills. So meeting people, knowing how to greet people politely, and knowing how to have that what can be a little bit awkward chit-chat, knowing when you've had enough awkward chit-chat or knowing when you need to have more awkward chit-chat. Those are the kind of things we teach.
Thank you so much. Explained it 100 times better than I could. But yeah, so once we decided that we were going to go forward with the work experience program, I think initially we had some setbacks with COVID, but we got there in the end. And we hosted the pilot program over a 10-week period at the gallery. So I think it was end of term 2, start of term 3 of last year. And our focus exhibition that we worked on was a really beautiful exhibition curated by Dr. Sandy Adsett called Te Moko on Our Face, in Your Face. And the sort of aim or idea of what the work experience would be is that students would develop a personal response to the artwork. So we would welcome them into the space, choose an artwork that maybe students really liked or even just kind of piqued an interest or something that they were drawn to. And the idea was we would sort of work through this, develop that response, and then present this to fellow classes from Kōwhai School and friends from other schools. And kind of working through this, my goals were, or our goals, I suppose, were really for students to develop those transferable skills that Amy was just talking about, which hopefully would support them in future work opportunities. So things like public speaking, which for some of the students that we had was a real challenge. So it was really great to see them build on that over their time at the gallery. Becoming acclimatized to a new space with new people. So sort of me being a new person, the fellow gallery staff that they kind of got to know from the time at the gallery, developing that personal response and talking about why they like it, presenting to a group of people, so kind of applying those public speaking skills, and ultimately improving their self-confidence, self-esteem, and resilience as well. So how our program worked in practice, we worked very collaboratively, as I've said, with these sessions. So because I'm not trained in specialist education, I would talk to Angie and Amy a lot before our sessions and kind of gauge what would be the best way to engage students for the separate sessions we would do. So for the first session, as we mentioned, I went to the school, which is something I quite like to do anytime we work with specialist schools, is to do a pre-visit where I go to their space so the students can get a sense of that's what that person looks like. This is what we're going to do when we go to that space. Just that familiarity, I think, is really important and can help with any potential anxiety that students might feel if they're worried about going to new spaces and what those spaces might look like. Our second session was just kind of coming into the gallery, having a general look around, talking through the Te Moko exhibition, planting the seed of choose your favourite artwork, and also looking around our other spaces too, like our education space and other galleries. Third session was when we chose our favourite artwork and worked through what students liked about them, and this session was really great. And Amy kind of gave me some really good tips on how to do this, because when we work with our neurotypical students from our regular state schools that we get in our week-to-week working world, it's really easy to get kids to talk, it's really easy to get kids to talk about what they like about something. It comes very naturally and they're excited to share it. But for these students, what we sort of did was we would put 10 pictures on a table and we'd be like, okay, choose your 5 favourite artworks. They would pull 5 aside and we'd move the other ones away, and then choose your 3 favourite artworks, and they'd put 3 aside until they eventually got down to 1, and then we'd work through what it was they liked about it. So for students, some students were really confident in saying, I really like the bird, and I really like the colours, I really like the designs, whereas other students might just point to something and just make an observation about it, like that colour's blue, or this artist uses wood. And for me, that was a sort of sign of engagement, so I've noted it down. And then our 4th and 5th sessions were our practice sessions. So as Amy and Angie have said, practice is so important. So we practice presenting our artworks, and then our 6th, 7th and 8th were presenting them to other schools and Kōwhai School classes as well. Yeah, so student preparedness was maybe one of the most important things that we did as part of the program, because as I've talked about with doing social scripts as well, it's really important that students felt prepared for each session so they knew what to expect. So one of the first things I did was I developed a schedule of what we're going to be doing each week, and I printed this in colour. I think I laminated it, trying to put on the works and took this to the school so students could keep a copy of this for themselves, and they could have it in class, so they could always know on this date we're going to be doing this and we're going at this time. And it also included imagery of our spaces too, so imagery of our Te Moko exhibition, and also the outside of the gallery as well. I also developed some pre-visit materials with the images, like I said, offered our pre-existing social scripts. And then after we had done our personal response workshop, I created little individual revision sheets, which included artwork pictures, the name of the artist, the name of the artwork, and all the little facts that the students liked about them, kind of like those script sheets that Amy just mentioned. And then practice. We practiced with no audience, back at school, and then in the gallery space itself as well. And I thought I'd put this on here just to kind of show you what I mean by revision sheets. So big kind of colour photos of the artwork, talking about why the students liked it, and then sort of, I don't know if you can tell, but I bolded some of the particular words just to really emphasise those points too. So yes, this is our program delivery. Students, they delivered to fellow classes, students and teachers from Kōwhai Special School. So here we have Angie there on the right with the coat on, and we had a class come in from Kōwhai School on that day. And it was really nice because the student up the front there in the little orange top that you can see, she was one of our students who we worked with as part of this program. And she kind of took on this almost like mother hen role, and she kind of welcomed these younger students into the space and really kind of took ownership of that. And I thought that was really quite cool to see. And something else as well as we delivered to friends from another specialist school in Havelock North, I think. So in terms of assessing our program, I had a massive debrief, because going into the program, I didn't know the students and I kind of didn't really know what their needs were or anything like that. So it was more difficult for me to gauge the successes and the progress that the students were making. So Angie and Amy are going to talk a little bit about the sort of differences that they saw in the students because of the program.
I think generally the main thing that we saw was a sense of pride in the students. And I know the young lady that you saw in the last photo, she was so nervous before she presented to the other specialist school. She was almost teary and really anxious. And after she did it, she was just, her face just glowed. She was so proud, and her family were really happy and excited for her. And we'd videoed it. So it was a real sense of achievement, achieving something that might have been out of reach and not available before. So a really cool experience. Definitely an increase in communication and social interaction skills for all of our young people. Andrew, that was on the first picture, I think. He's got a few words that he says, but he did stand there. He was in the right place. He smiled. He engaged with his audience, and he told them blue because he liked the blue. And that was just one word, but it was significant, relevant to the painting. And yeah, he did a really good job. And he looked really proud as well afterwards. And he's got a lovely family who are also really proud of him too. Transferring skills. Often our students find it hard to generalize skills learned into other environments. So for example, they might be able to read it and present it in the school, in the classroom, but going to the art gallery, it might be a challenge, which is why there was lots of practice on that thread. Sometimes if we see students in the supermarket, they don't want to talk to us because we should be at school and not in the supermarket. So it's that sort of contextual awareness as well. Another student was really adamant he didn't want to use te reo at school. He didn't like that, but he used that in his speech when he was presenting, which was amazing. And one of our young men was also ill on one of the days, and Kieran actually stepped up and did his presentation as well, like really well. So that was brilliant. Yeah, we were really proud of him for that. And before I pass on to Amy, just another thing. One of our younger classes visited, and the student hadn't wanted to go in the art gallery on previous visits, and they couldn't get him out of the bus or into the door. And this time they took a lot of time, waited a while, and he actually came in and experienced the art gallery for the first time. He had a bit of a run around and explored, but that was a really big step for him as well for accessing the community. So that was another big impact as well for other classes. Okay, I'll pass on to Amy.
I think one of the really cool things that stood out for me, Angie spoke about that student who wasn't keen to speak in Te Reo Māori and has been quite adamant in the class that that's not what he was going to do. We actually discovered through this experience that he has beautiful pronunciation. And so he's almost come into like a leadership role within the classroom of correcting others' pronunciation, which is, actually amazing. So that's been a really cool outcome. I think one of the one of the other things that really stood out for me was in Hastings, the art gallery is next to the library. And so, of course, when we go to the library, our classes are generally not the quietest. And so kind of when we go into the library, we try and kind of bring the volume down and bring it back to calm. And that's successful. And so developing that understanding that in the library we're quiet, but next door at the art gallery we're allowed to make noise and we're allowed to experience things. And Kelsey tells us what we can touch and Kelsey tells us what we can't touch. But kind of building that different understanding was very cool for our students. Definitely understanding and appreciation of the artwork. Like Kelsey was so skilled in the way that she provided enough information, but not an overwhelming amount on each piece of artwork, so that students, when they were building up their, like they knew which one they liked best, but as Kelsey added more information, the way that they were able to create the scripts with kind of the added information of what's important to them. Like there was one of the photos back, you could see me pointing to the puku of a Māori character. Is it on a po, Kelsey? Is that what it was? Something of that description. And the young lady had been really interested in the puku. She wasn't so interested in the rest of the carving, but she really liked the puku. So that was really cool that they could build their own, appreciation for art. Angie's talked about the transferable skills and social interaction and communication. One of the guys we took with us was super shy, like so shy that he often wouldn't say hello to his teacher in the morning at all. And he would only talk to his friends very quietly and only kind of dirty jokes. That was his preferred currency. And through this experience of having to be in this position to present both to us initially and then to a wider audience, it was a really great opportunity for him to be successful communicating with his peers. It's really good. And as Kelsey's touched on, also, our young people getting the opportunity to show those leadership skills when our younger students went in and kind of be good at something and be able to lead something and be able to welcome these young people into this space. And, this is a safe place for us and come in and kind of, I've got you, I'll look after you. So there were a lot of cool outcomes.
And something else we did was in term 4, I decided that it would be really nice to give students little kind of certificates, which were certificates of completion, and I gave them a little gift as well from our gallery shops. That was quite nice. So I went to the school and I presented the awards to the students, and they were really, really proud of themselves. It was a really nice way to do it. But the other thing I did on the certificate of completion is I also wrote little individual messages about the students and kind of what improved or what they worked on when they're in the space, so that it could actually be useful. And if they go to apply for a job after they leave school, maybe they could use that as part of their application. So something that honoured their time with us at the gallery, but also something that could be useful for future opportunities as well. So that's us giving out some awards. Cool. So I thought lastly, one of the great things to share was just tips for working with these audiences from my experience. And sorry if it's a bit repetitive. I'm not sure if I've said enough about each of these points already, but these are kind of the main points that I want to drive home in case anybody's thinking about doing a similar thing or creating a bespoke opportunity for students from specialist schools. So keep in regular contact, inform schools of upcoming shows and opportunities. So just be really open and available to them. Keep them in the loop of what's happening and what their sort of options are for visits. If possible, go and visit your local specialist school and have a tour of the space. It's very, very interesting and really nice in gaining that deeper understanding about how special schools work. I've already talked about options. Be really clear in your communication about any potential stresses in your environment. So in some of the first sessions where the tech students came to us at the gallery, we were having some roof renovations done, which was very trying. And we brought them into the space and I let the teachers know that this was happening. And then I also told the contractors to not work on the roof, which might sound a bit bossy, but don't work on the roof for half an hour while we have these students in our space, just in case of loud, sudden noises, which might cause distress to some of the students. So just being really clear in your communication about that can go a long way. If you are going to work to create a bespoke experience, I would really advise collaboration. It's really nice to work together and also just helps you develop the best possible experiences for that class and for those students. Be prepared to think outside of the box, and kind of challenge your thinking about how you might work with students, because sometimes what you think is going to work doesn't work. And that's okay. It's all sort of part of the process as well. That's no worries, Di. Thank you. I'm doing the mentorship program, and Di's my mentor, so very nice to see her here. Yeah, and give students plenty of preparation as much as possible. Indicate really clearly what they can expect from each session, include imagery of your space, and just be really clear with all that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. We would love to answer any questions anybody has, any burning questions for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much to all three of you. This was super interesting, and I've had a bit of a preview before, of course, as we've met with Angie, Amy, and Kelsey, and I still heard so many new things or things I want to do more about. I've got a gazillion questions. I'm sure other people have lots of questions as well, so I'm just going to jump in first, if that's all right. It's actually a question for Amy and Angie, and I don't know if you can fully help me with that, because I'm really interested. You talked about you know your students so well, you know their particular needs so well, and you mentioned that the students with their special learning needs might be going to a mainstream school. Quite often in my past career, mainly I've worked with mainstream schools, and they have brought students with special needs along, but I've not always been successful in finding out how I can meet their needs. What would be your tips? Is there any particular ways an educator can approach the visiting teacher to find out how they can adapt their programs to make them better for the visiting students?
That's a really good question. I think that you would need to have that information beforehand. And that would maybe be social stories or information going out to the school beforehand, or it might be that you know, quite often when we go, I taught mainstream for 15 years before I came to special ed, and quite often when we go on trips, we would have this opportunity, and then we might go outside and have a picnic lunch, or, you know, eat our lunch out of our bags. Like maybe there's an opportunity where that young person could come in with their teacher for 5 minutes afterwards to have a little bit of a different experience. That might be appropriate.
Yeah.
But the teacher could definitely support you with ideas for that young person, but that could be a cool thing to offer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because you mentioned the social stories. Do you think it would be a good idea to always include links to social stories and things like that in your email communication, regardless of whether you know there's a special student coming or not?
It often works for other students as well that don't have special needs. And a lot of students nowadays have anxiety as well. So if the student's anxious about something because they don't really know what to expect, that can be really good for all students. A bit like us as well as adults. If we're going on holiday, we want to look at where we're going. We want to know what time the plane's going, just to prepare ourselves. And that really helps lots of students as well. And I think more information is better, definitely.
Great. So taking away from that, as my understanding is, there will be many students that can benefit from some adaptations. Great to get some information out beforehand.
Definitely.
Not singling out students, but do it a blanket approach, and then negotiate with the teachers if those special experiences, like picnic lunch, during picnic lunch or after picnic lunch experience. Thank you so much. If anyone on the audience has some particular questions for Kelsey or Amy or Angie, feel free to just pop them in the chat if you like. I know that I've just seen something else pop up. Amy and Angie, how many students are again in your typical class at Kōwhai?
4 would be a small class, kind of 8 and 9 would be a big class.
4 to 9. Wow.
I think maximum we can have is 12, but we don't really have 12, do we?
No, we don't.
And we base them on dynamics as well as age. So we're a little bit looser on moving up, say, from primary to intermediate or intermediate to high school. We have a bit more flexibility depending on individual student needs, dynamics, you know, where the student's at the time.
Great.
And even our smaller classes, even if it has 4 students, would have 3 staff members with those 4 students.
Yeah.
And one other thing that's quite unique is in mainstream, most students change teachers each year, whereas in special schools, quite often they'll be with the same teacher for 3 or 4 years in a row. So we do get to know our students incredibly well.
Yeah, you're making a really good point for those of us that are offering ELC or formerly LEATEC experiences, quite often there is a parent to adult ratio that we go with, and if there's admissions, there might be admission charges for additional adults. But it's just a really good reminder for all of us as specialist school will normally bring additional staff to support the students. So let's make sure that we don't put a barrier in their way, financial or any other way, and appreciate the support they're bringing. Kelsey, there's a question for you. How did that work fit in with your how did that work fit in with your LEOTC contract? And how did it fit in with the rest of what was going on at your work? I mean, there was talk about you opening up the exhibitions early, making spaces available to the students themselves. How did it fit in?
I was very lucky in my past job to have a lot of support from my manager, Elham, and just the fellow gallery staff. They knew that I was always really passionate about accessibility, and this was something that I wanted to bring to the gallery, and they always gave me their full support on this. So I was very lucky to have that free reign. Well, not free reign, within reason, but a lot of kind of free reign in terms of, being able to open early. It was just really mainly about making our spaces accessible as possible, and working together to do that. And yeah, I did report on it as part of our LEOTC contract back in Hastings, even though it wasn't large in terms of student numbers. With the 4 students, it really did meet that question that is always quite difficult to answer in the LEOTC reports of, are your students better off, or how are the students better off for coming to your gallery, which can be quite a challenging one to ask, because as we've talked about, Monica, we're not with those students for a very long time, and unless we have a really thorough debrief about a program, it's hard to gauge that. And so I thought that this program was a really nice example of an instance where that program did help the students. They were better off for coming and participating in that.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Kelsey. And anybody who has been on the LEOTC contracts or is going onto the new ELC contracts, the reporting of these seems to have stayed the same. So hopefully many of us can open up our doors and invite, the colleagues of Amy and Angie and their students along. Of course, that's not easy to do this kind of work, I mean, you're passionate about it, Kelsey, but what were some of the challenges that you encountered when you were, working in this particular project, but maybe working with students with specialist needs overall?
I think this is maybe something that many of us that haven't had that specialist education training can resonate with, but you can be a bit self-conscious of your own kind of skills and abilities, because it's very apparent that you need to change your approach when working with specialist schools. It's just quite different. And so there's sort of that own personal thing that you feel, but if the intent is there and the passion is there for it, it's really easy to do. And I think collaboration is a really good way to kind of get through that. Like, I just work so closely with Angie and Amy and sort of saying, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? Or how might we suit this to your students' needs? Or what kind of approach for developing a personal response will work really well? And another thing that was quite challenging, I guess, was not knowing the students going into the project and kind of not knowing what their needs would be. So when I went and met them for the first time, as we said, they were completely, it was radio silence. I was like, oh my goodness, I hope that was okay. But kind of through it, I could just observe the students' behaviour, and I could see they were gradually getting more comfortable and more kind of used to me and used to our space and used to the kind of format that we would have when they would come and visit us. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Thanks so much. If there, Mel, were there any other questions out there that you can see that I might have overlooked? Oh, she's shaking her head. I'm offering your services. No, I'm just wanted to put it out there. If anybody has got some questions, especially those people watching the recording, that they would like to ask of Kelsey, Angie, or Amy, please feel free to get in touch with Mel. We can pass on those questions to them, and then the answers, get the answers back to you. I'm pretty sure I'm going to watch this recording more than once, because there's so much in there that I want to go back and have another look at. We've got some publications and some articles that were written about the kind of work you've done in this project. I'm just quickly going to paste them into the chat. So if anybody wants to go back and have another look, read up some of the materials that were written for Arts Access Aotearoa, they are in the chat right now, and we will also add them to the website. But that's probably all we've got time for today, as they say on TV. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We really appreciate your time, the time to prepare, the time to present. But what I personally want to say, thank you so much for looking after these wonderful young people and setting an example for us how we can make a difference to them as well. So thank you so much. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Well, we have got some news for you. We've got another new course that's starting on Monday. Helen has been working on this tirelessly, and the course is titled Enriching Curriculums Through Culture and Heritage in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So as I said, it will be live on FutureLearn on the FutureLearn platform from Monday, 4th of July. Now, just the same as with our first course, you can enroll in this course completely for free. And when you are on the free account, like I expect all of us are, you have got access to all content from 4 weeks from signing up. So if you know you've got a really busy time come up and you don't have enough time to go into the course and do the content, maybe just push out your sign up a little bit further. Or if you know school holidays are coming up, you've got plenty of time, sign up then and go through the course. Now, you don't have to go through the course in order. You can pick and choose whichever aspects you're most interested in. So if you want to, you can finish that course much faster than 4 weeks, or you can take your time and stretch it out over the full duration. There's lots in there. We hope that you will can take away that will help you with your learning programs. So this particular course is all about the curriculum connections, and yeah, we're looking forward to getting some feedback from you. We've got another webinar coming up as well. Next week is the last webinar for this term, so it's only 1 week away. And it is another webinar in our series of Aotearoa New Zealand's histories. And this time we will have Laura Jones from our team here at Te Papa, Ricky Preble from Pukeahu, and Te Riora Crane from Hitohu Tamaki. And they will talk to us about how they support learners to think critically about our histories. A big focus for them is the stories that our exhibitions tell, but also the stories our exhibitions don't tell and the voices that are missing. So don't miss that. Please do come back and view the webinar either live on Thursday, 7th of July, same time, same place, really 3:30 to 4:30, or come back and watch the recording afterwards. Now, thank you so much again, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to Kelsey, Angie, and Amy. You've been amazing and super inspiring to all of us. And if any of our viewers would like to revisit what they have presented on, or any of our other webinars, check out our YouTube channel or the website, and we'll also share the links again on in our Facebook group for those that are part of that. But now it's time to finish with karakia. Ono hia, ono hia. Ono hia ki te uru tapanui. Kia wātea, kia mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairoa I te ara takata. Koe a rai rongo, whakairia ake ki runga. Kia tina, tina. Oie, tae ki e. Thank you so much again for coming, and we're looking forward to seeing you again next week. Ka kite.